In a dimly lit courtroom of Kinshasa on September 30th, 2025, a military tribunal delivered a verdict that echoed across the Democratic Republic of Congo. Former President Joseph Kabila was sentenced to death in absentia, convicted of treason, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and aiding rebel groups like the M23. Kabila, now in exile, was ordered to pay over $50 billion in damages for the atrocities linked to his 18-year rule. This judgment, stemming from allegations of supporting Rwanda-backed insurgents and orchestrating violence, marked a symbolic reckoning for a man whose presidency plunged the Congo into the depths of horror often described as demonic. But for the Congolese people, this was no abstract justice. It was a faint acknowledgement of the gut-wrenching suffering inflicted upon millions. From mass graves in the eastern jungles to the shattered lives of rape survivors, child soldiers, Kabila's era was a tapestry of blood, exploitation, and despair. This is their story, drawn from survivor accounts, human rights reports, and the unyielding scars of a nation. Joseph Kabila ascended to power in January 2001, at just 29 years old, following the assassination of his father, Laurent Desire Kabila. Laurent had led the alliance of democratic forces for the liberation of Congo Zaire in overthrowing the dictator Mobutu during the First Congo War, 1996 to 1997. But that victory was soaked in civilian blood. Forces under Laurent Kabila, backed by Rwanda and Uganda, committed widespread atrocities, including the massacre of tens of thousands of Rwandan Hutu refugees fleeing the 1994 genocide. When Joseph took the helm amid the raging Second Congo War, 1998 to 2003, often called Africa's World War, he inherited not just a presidency but a machinery of violence that he would perpetuate and expand. The Second Congo War, which drew in 9 African nations and over 20 armed groups, claimed an estimated 5.4 million lives by 2008, mostly from torture, disease, and starvation amid the chaos. Under Joseph's command, Congolese forces and allied militias unleashed horrors that defied humanity. In the eastern provinces of North and South Kivu, where mineral wealth like coltan and gold fueled the conflict, villages became killing fields. One early incident under Joseph's watch was the Kisangani clashes in 2002, where rival Ugandan and Rwandan-backed factions, tacitly supported by Kabila's regime, fought for control, resulting in hundreds of civilian deaths from indiscriminate shelling and executions. But the true demonic essence lay in the systematic targeting of civilians. Human Rights Watch documented how Kabila's forces, including the armed forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo, engaged in bait-and-kill operations. Aid workers would locate refugee camps, only for soldiers to descend, slaughtering men, women, and children. In one gut-wrenching account from a 1997 HRW report, echoing patterns that continued into Joseph's rule, a nurse in a South Kivu village witnessed ADFL troops, precursors to FARDC, hack 13 refugees to death with machetes near a Catholic church. "They came at night," she recalled, her voice trembling in the testimony. The screams, the children clinging to their mothers as blades fell. Blood soaked the earth like rain. Bodies were dumped in wells and rivers to hide the evidence, with estimates of hundreds killed along an 80-kilometer stretch of road alone. As the war ended with the 2003 peace accords, violence morphed into a perpetual low-intensity hell in the east. Kabila's government failed or refused to disarm militias, many of which were integrated into the FARDC, perpetuating a cycle of abuse. The Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, FDLR, a Hutu militia with genocide ties, clashed with Congolese Tutsi groups like the M23, which Kabila allegedly supported later in his tenure. This proxy warfare turned civilians into pawns. In Ituri province, ethnic clashes fueled by resource grabs led to massacres like the 2003 Bogoro attack, where over 200 villagers were killed, many hacked to pieces while hiding in churches. The emotional toll is perhaps best captured in survivor testimonies, which paint a picture of souls shattered beyond repair. Take Alphonsine, a young woman from South Kivu whose story was shared by the Pansy Foundation, founded by Nobel laureate Dr. Denis Mukwege, to treat survivors of sexual violence. Growing up amid the wars, Alphonsine watched as militias aligned with Kabila's forces raided her village one night in the early 2000s. "They burst in like demons from the forest," she recounted. "My parents were shot before my eyes, their bodies crumpling like discarded cloth. Then they dragged me and other girls into the bush. For weeks, she endured repeated gang rapes, her body violated as a weapon to break communities. I felt my spirit die each time," she said, tears streaming. "The pain was not just physical. It was like they stole my future." Alphonsine escaped, but the trauma left her incontinent and ostracized, a common fate for thousands. Sexual violence under Kabila reached epidemic proportions, earning the DRC the grim title of rape capital of the world. A 2011 study cited by World Without Genocide estimated a woman was raped every minute, with over 400,000 cases annually at peak. Militias used rape to terrorize, humiliate, and displace populations from mineral-rich areas. Sarah, another Pansy survivor, was 29 when 6 armed men, part of a group backed by elements in Kabila's military, abducted her in 2008. "They took turns, day after day, in the forest," she whispered in her testimony. "I lost count after the first week. My body broke, bladder torn, womb ruined. I woke in a pool of my own waste, praying for death." Such acts weren't random. They were strategic, destroying family structures and spreading HIV/AIDS, which ravaged communities already weakened by war. Child soldiers were another horror Kabila failed to eradicate, despite international pressure. Under his rule, an estimated 30,000 children were recruited by various groups, including the FARDC. Boys as young as 10 were forced into combat, drugged with amphetamines to numb fear, and ordered to kill. One former child soldier, interviewed by Amnesty International in 2010, described his induction. "They gave me a gun and said, 'Shoot your friend or die.' I pulled the trigger, and his blood splashed on me. From then on, I was no longer a child." Girls faced double jeopardy, combat by day, rape by night. The emotional wreckage was profound. Many survivors, like this boy, suffered lifelong PTSD, wandering ghost-like in displacement camps. The Kasai crisis of 2016 to 2017 exemplified Kabila's later brutality. As he clung to power beyond his constitutional term, refusing elections, a local chieftain's rebellion sparked a bloodbath. Government forces and allied militias killed over 3,000, including in targeted massacres. In one incident, 250 died in a 3-month spree, with child soldiers used as cannon fodder. A UNHCR report detailed villages burned, bodies mutilated. A mother from Kasai, fleeing with her infant, told reporters, "They came at dawn, flames licking the sky. My husband was beheaded as he shielded us. I ran with my baby, his cries piercing the smoke. We hid in the bush for days, eating leaves, watching vultures circle the dead." Over 1.4 million were displaced, adding to the 4.5 million internally displaced by 2018. Economic exploitation amplified the suffering. Kabila's regime profited from blood minerals, with corruption siphoning billions while communities starved. Chinese deals, funneled to Kabila's cronies, left locals in poverty. In coltan mines, slaves, including children, labored under whips, dying from collapses or executions. One miner, speaking to HRW in 2012, said, "We dig like animals, backs breaking, for pennies that go to the generals. If you complain, a bullet ends it." This resource curse funded more violence, a vicious loop. Political repression was equally demonic. As Kabila delayed elections, Protests in 2016 to 2018 were met with gunfire. The UN Joint Human Rights Office recorded over 1,000 violations in Kinshasa alone during 3 days of unrest in 2016. Activists were disappeared, journalists beaten. One opposition leader's widow recounted, "They took him at midnight, accusing him of treason. Weeks later, his body washed up, eyes gouged, fingers severed. Our children ask for their father. I have no words." Even healthcare became a battlefield. In 1996, just before Joseph's rise, Lemra Hospital was attacked, killing 37 patients in their beds, a pattern that persisted. Dr. Mukwege, treating thousands at Panzi, faced death threats for exposing rapes by government-linked forces. Yvette's story encapsulates the resilience amid horror. Raped as a child during Kabila's early years, she was shunned by her community. "The shame burned like fire," she said. "I thought of suicide daily." Through Panzi, she learned crafts, building a new life. Yet, scars remain. Every night, the memories return. The hands pinning me down, the laughter of monsters. Kabila's 2019 handover to Felix Tshisekedi was hailed as progress, but violence lingered. Allegations of his M23 ties led to the 2025 trial, where prosecutors sought death for war crimes, including murder, rape, and torture. In exile, likely in South Africa or rebel-held areas, Kabila denies it all. But for survivors, the sentence is bittersweet. Justice delayed, lives irreparable. The Congo's horrors under Kabila weren't mere war. They were a calculated descent into hell, where humanity was commodified and discarded. As one survivor pleaded, "Remember us not as victims, but as witnesses. Let our pain forge peace." In a nation still bleeding, that plea echoes louder than any verdict.